There is a phrase that women constantly pronounce, seemingly innocent question, and 93% of men are completely ignored. And no, I'm not exaggerating. A Gottman Institute study found, what about couples who do not recognize these verbal cues? 81% chances of relationship breakdown. Today I will talk about 2 issues, which a woman asks when she wants closeness with you. And the second question will completely change your perception every conversation with a woman since this moment. But before we get to this, you need to understand something no one ever explained it to you. Listen, I'm going to tell you something that I, as a woman, need a little. It's unpleasant to admit, but it's true. We almost never say directly what we want when it comes to intimacy. This is not spontaneous, not for fun, not out of anger. Behind this lies a deep psychological reason associated with thousand-year evolution, with how the brain processes vulnerability, and especially with what psychologists call a protocol emotional safety. And here the fun begins. We do not ask for intimacy by declaration. We ask her questions, 2 very specific questions that function like code. And the most ironic thing that you've heard dozens of them, maybe hundreds of times. But every time you heard them, you probably answered, nothing, or I don't know, or they just changed topic. And at that moment, we didn't realize it realizing, you closed the door that she opened for you. Today, I will not only tell you what it is 2 questions, but I'll also explain the psychology of each of them. Why do we them use what we evaluate, when shall we ask them? And most importantly, properly answer if you really want to deepen this connection. Because the correct answer is not the one you think, but the wrong answer is the one which you give by default is the reason why many your relationship has cooled. And you don't understood why. But before let's move on to the questions, you need to understand the whole mechanism, because if I give you questions without context, you will commit same mistake as everyone else. Learning words without understanding the language. I'll start with something that might surprise you. Dr. Helen Pfizer, biologist anthropologist from Rogers University and one of world's leading researchers romantic love, discovered something amazing in his research with using functional magnetic resonance imaging fMRI. When a woman feels attracted and wants to get emotionally close to someone, it is not the areas of it that are activated first, brain associated with physical desire, and areas related to language. Regions Brock and Bernick, in charge of speech production and understanding, are activated before everyone else regions. This indicates something very important. For most women, intimacy starts with words, not with touches. Not from the visual contact, but with questions, and not just with some words. Why exactly questions rather than statements? This is where it all begins interesting. Evolutionary psychologist Marian Fisher, which, by the way, bears the same surname, but not related to Helen, published a study in a journal Evolution and Human Behavior, in which explained that women throughout evolutionary history have developed evaluation mechanism before opening for intimacy. It's not a modern fad, it's a mechanism survival. Let me explain it this way. Thousands of years ago, a woman who entered into intimate relationship with the wrong man risked not only her emotional well-being, but also the life of their children and their position in social group. Therefore, the female brain developed a system pre-filters. And these filters work through questions. Questions that seem ordinary, but in fact are complex checks emotional compatibility. And you haven't been told about this yet. One video. These questions are not sought information, but a reaction. It's not so important what you answer, is how much you answer you do it. Tone, pace, look, accompanying your answer. Are you considering you either answer it automatically? She reads all this. The question is, does she really catch yours? Bait for your reaction? Dr. Sue Johnson, creator emotionally focused therapy and author of the book HMT, Brilliant Zongjaya, says this. What are the questions of a woman striving for intimacy? There is always another hiding question. And this hidden question is always one and the same. I'm sure you know this is the key to everything you hear today. Every question I'm going to reveal in essence is a variation of this fundamental question. Now, let's move on to the first one. First question which a woman asks when she wants getting closer to you seems the easiest thing in the universe. He is so ordinary that you've probably brushed it off 1,000 times him. That's why this question works as a filter, because only a man who truly understands her will be able to recognize its meaning. The question is, what are you thinking about? Yes, the same question you heard 1,000,000 times and always answered nothing, looking at the phone. This question that seems insignificant, almost annoying, sometimes actually is one of the most powerful signals intimacy in the female repertoire. And I'll explain why. With this degree detail, you're probably talking about never thought about it. When a woman asks you, what are you thinking about? She doesn't want to know if you're thinking about the bill, electricity, or the score of the match. Well, Technically, she's interested in it, but it's superficial. She's actually doing what Dr. John Gottman, the world's most quoted marriage researcher, calls preliminary action, invitation to communication. Gottman studied more than 3,000 couples for 4 decades, and he discovered that relationships are destroyed not by major ones quarrels or dramatic betrayals, and accumulation of rejected invitations. Every time your partner quits one of these invitations to you, and you ignore what Gottman calls due to the insult, a small coin, and when this account is full, relationships fall apart without warning, without explosion. She's just waking up once and no longer feels anything. So when she asks, "What are you talking about? Do you think?" This is not curiosity, but check. She checks if it's still open, an emotional bridge between you. She checks whether you are ready to let her in your inner world. Because for women, physical intimacy without mental intimacy seems empty, mechanical, lonely, even when she's by someone. And that's what changes everything. Research published in the Journal of Sex Research in 2019 analyzed data from more than 2,000 women and discovered that the main factor determining sexual women's desire is not physical attractiveness of a partner, impurity contacts, and not even NASNA. This is the perception of emotional accessibility, that is, the feeling that partner is emotionally open and ready to share your inner world. How measure this availability? It is by answering questions like, "What about do you think?" Let me give an example of this. It became clearer. Imagine 2 scenarios. In the first, you sit on the couch after dinner. She looks at you and asks, "What are you thinking about?" You don't say anything without taking your eyes off from the phone. What happened to you just now? Happened? Nothing. For her, you are just slammed the door in our face. You just without words let her know that the inner world is a place where she is not happy, and her brain registers it, right? Anger, sadness. And this sadness, over time, it turns into alienation. Now the second scenario, the same situation. She asks, "What are you thinking about?" You put your phone down and look at her, and say something real. This must necessarily be philosophical or romantic. It could be something like, "I was thinking about how long ago we didn't eat in peace." Or, "I was thinking about what my boss told me today, and I don't know how to take this." Or even, "To be honest, I was thinking about some nonsense, for example, do penguins have knees on buttocks?" The important thing is that you open the door, show to her that they are ready to be vulnerable, to share, let her in. And this, gentlemen, an aphrodisiac for the female brain. I'm waxing poetic. This is neurobiology. When a woman feels emotional openness in your partner, her brain releases oxytocin, the same hormone which is released during intimate physical contact. That is good. The reaction you're thinking about might cause the same chemical reaction in her reaction, as well as a prolonged hug. Dr. Brené Brown, researcher from the University of Houston, that's great illustrates with the phrase, "Vulnerability is not weakness." Vulnerability is the most accurate measure of the courage we have. And when a woman asks you, "What are you talking about?" think this gives you an opportunity to show courage. This is an encrypted message. I want feel your closeness, but I need for you to take the first step. Now, before moving on to the second question, I need to mention one important detail. Question, "What are you thinking about?" It doesn't always mean what she wants proximity. Sometimes she's just curious. How to distinguish these 2 situations? Look at the context. If the question accompanied by physical contact, even minimal, for example, touching your hand, leaning against you, or playing with your hair, when she looks at you, it's not just a passing curiosity, this invitation. If this happens in a quiet moment, when you are alone, when comfort reigns silence, it's practically guaranteed. But this is only the first step. Second question, the one that really defines moment, and this is the one you are less of you expect everything. The second question is more thin, more veiled, and much more revealing. So much so that, once you understand it, you will begin to recognize it in past conversations, and you probably will grab your head, remembering all the times you've lost sight of him. The second question the woman asks is when he wants intimacy. This is some kind of variant of the question. What do you like most? What do you like about me? It may take different shapes. Why are you with me? What you liked me first cue. What do you like about me? What makes me different? You like me more now, or when we just met. These are all variations of the same thing, the same. They are all looking for the same thing. And they are not looking for a compliment, but for something much more complex. I'll explain it in detail because right here most men commit fatal error. When a man hears what you care about, he likes it most instinctively tells you to answer something physical. I like your eyes. You have an amazing body, your smile. And, of course, these answers are not or incorrect. They won't call conflict. But if she asks you this question, how an invitation to intimacy, purely physical answer, will tell her what you don't want report. He will tell her that you appreciate her for appearance. And for the woman who opens the door to intimacy, it will be look like you're saying, I like you, but I don't know you. Dr. Stur Perl, Belgian psychotherapist and one of the most respected experts in the world of modern relations, explains this brilliantly. She says that female desire is based on principle that most people ignores. The feeling of being seen, not just look. Difference huge. To look is to perceive surface. Seeing is perceiving essence. And when the woman asks, "What do you like most about me?" she asks, "Can you see me? Do you see whether you are who I really am, or just what am I projecting?" Research University of Rochester, published in Personality and Social Magazine Psychology in 2021, showed that the strongest variable associated with female sexual satisfaction in long-term relationship is impurity or technology, but what they called perceived responsiveness partner. The perception that a partner reacts to her most intimate emotional needs. And this perception is largely formed in moments like this are in the way you react when she asks you what you like about it. So, which one correct answer? Let me bring you specific example. She asks, "Well, what's your favorite thing about me?" Average answer, everything. And it's probably the worst possible answer, because everything means nothing. It's the lazy way that tells her that you didn't think about it, that you didn't watch her, that you didn't pay attention time to determine what makes it unique. Now compare it with something like this. "I like it how angry do you get when someone unfair to another person, even if you don't know him. I like this one the crease that appears on you here when you're reading avidly something. I like that you always remember ask me how my day was, even if you've had a terrible day. Do you feel the difference?" The first answer ends the conversation. Second opens up a whole world. The first is the wall. The second is the window. And when a woman feels like this, notice, when it seems to her that a person before her eye remembered her details, her gestures, her contradictions, inside her is activated something she can't fake or force. Neuropsychologist Luan Brizendine, author books The Female Brain, explains what is in the female brain. There is an area responsible for emotional perception, which much more active than in men's. This means that we are processing emotional reactions with such depth, which men sometimes don't understand. When you respond with something general, we hear not just words, we hear what is missing. We hear the emptiness behind with the phrase, "I really like you." And this emptiness feels like distance. But when you answer specifically with details showing observation and emotional memory, our brain interprets this as safety, like home. And the closeness, true intimacy, occurs only when there is a feeling of home. Here there is one more important nuance. When she asks you this question, and you're good you answer, something in physical dynamics changes almost instantly. Her body literally relaxes, muscle tension decreases, breathing slows down, and visual contact becomes more long-lasting. These are physiological indicators of openness that Dr. Sue Johnson documented in detail in her clinical practice. Woman's body reflects it with amazing accuracy, emotional state. If she feels emotionally protected, her body reports it before she does pronounces words. And here is the connection between two questions. First, what are you talking about? Do you think? Opens a communication channel. He confirms that emotional connection active. Second, what do you care about most? I like it. Deepens this connection to such an extent that intimacy becomes a natural consequence. Not negotiations, not separate events, but a continuation conversation. When both questions appear in the same conversation or even simultaneously, it's not a coincidence, it's sequence. Emotional protocol that is feminine the brain performs almost unconsciously. First, he checks the general safety, then checks for personal recognition. If both filters are passed, the door opens. Now that you know these two questions, I have to warn you about something, and it's as important as anything else. Do not use this knowledge for manipulation. Don't turn it into a technique. On that the moment when you memorize in advance prepared answers to use them when she asks these questions, you will lose all power sincerity. And women recognize insincerity with surgical precision. This is not mystical intuition. Our brain literally made for reading microexpressions. inconsistencies in tone, voices, and inconsistencies between words and body language. Dr. Paul Ekman, the most world-famous researcher in microexpressions, confirmed that women consistently outperform men in reading nonverbal emotional signals. So, if you try to give the perfect answer that you didn't have, and I think she'll notice it. Perhaps unconsciously. She might not be able to articulate what she doesn't like, but something inside her will tense up, and tension will close the door you tried to open. However, you can do much more valuable than just memorizing answers. You can practice authenticity observation. Start noticing details in behavior of people you care about. Not only how they look, but also how they behave. What makes them laugh sincerely, and not just out of politeness? What are they bothered at 3 a.m.? What makes them to be proud of themselves? When you are not accumulating this information data, but as a real connection, correct the answers come naturally because these are no longer answers, but the truth. 2045 and one more thing, what you should never do is make fun of these issues. Never answer again this or why. You always asking the same question. Every time you reject a question, you don't just give up invitations to communicate, you teach her that that openness has its price. And eventually she'll stop trying with a dramatic statement, but simply silence. Or one day you will realize that she is more doesn't ask you anything. And this silence is much more dangerous any dispute. So, let's sum it up. Result. 2 questions. What are you thinking? And what do you like most about me? The first opens the channel, the second deepens him. Together they form sequence that the female brain is used to assess how safe emotionally and physically intimacy with this person. This is not random questions. These are veiled invitations, and how you attend them answer can be a decisive factor between thriving relationships and those which will quietly fade away. Now here's what I want you to understand. If this information was for you valuable, if she changed even a little your attitude towards the person next to you, it means I've done my part. Your part is simple. Share this video with those who need to hear it. Not for the sake of me, not for the sake of the number of views channel, but because somewhere there today in the evening the man will receive one of these 2 questions. And, depending on did he watch this video or not. Evening can be the beginning of something beautiful, or the beginning of the end. You decide whether to give him this chance or not. And since we're talking about understanding true feelings of a woman, you need know something because sometimes she doesn't ask you these questions. Sometimes instead, in order to take the initiative, she moves away, becomes cold, like she doesn't care about you. And the majority men perceive this as indifference, but the reality is completely different, and this is confirmed by studies that you'll be amazed. In the video that is now show when she pulls away and it's getting cold, that's proof that she can't stop thinking about you. I'll explain what exactly is happening in her head when she behaves like this, and why is this coldness paradoxical way is one of the most powerful signs that she can't get you out of my head. If you don't watch this video, you'll continue to accept the coldness for indifference, and this mistake may cost you the right person.
Click.
Now I see you.
Fine.
Fine. All in.